Another day, another story. Lethal air, contaminated land, cancer epidemics, and cover-ups. These nuclear accidents were catastrophic. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. Nuclear power kicked into gear in the 1950s, and today some 440 reactors dot the globe, providing an estimated 10% of the world's electricity. Unlike fossil fuels, nuclear power can provide a relatively stable and environmentally friendly source of energy. But when things go wrong, the results are nothing short of catastrophic. Below, check out 5 of the most devastating nuclear accidents in history, what caused them, how they were contained, or not, and what happened after. 1. Kishtim, September 29, 1957. In the years following World War II, the Soviet Union constructed dozens of covert facilities, many of them hastily and shoddily built, in an effort to strengthen their nuclear arsenal. One of these, the Mayak nuclear fuel processing plant in the Russian town of Ozyorsk, became the site of a major disaster when the cooling system in a waste storage tank failed, causing the dried radioactive material it contained to overheat and explode. A plume of deadly particles swelled above Ozyorsk and the surrounding region, eventually spanning some 300 square miles. A full week passed before the affected zone's 10,000 residents were evacuated. Because the plant was shrouded in secrecy, they received no explanation for their abrupt and permanent resettlement. By that time, reports had surfaced of mysterious ailments, including people's skin sloughing off from exposed body parts. This was a radioactive contamination accident at Mayak, a plutonium production site in the Soviet Union, now Russia. A cooling system failure led to the explosion of a waste storage tank, releasing radioactive materials into the atmosphere. The event was kept secret for many years, and it's one of the most serious nuclear accidents before Chernobyl. The Mayak incident has come to be associated with the nearby town of Kishtim because Ozyorsk did not appear on any official maps at the time. 2. Windscale, October 10, 1957. Designed to produce plutonium and other materials for the country's burgeoning nuclear weapons program, Britain's first nuclear reactor, known as Windscale, was built in northwest England in the late 1940s. On October 10, 1957, workers conducting standard maintenance at the massive facility noticed rising temperatures. Upon further inspection, they discovered that the reactor's uranium-filled graphite core had caught fire. With the reactor on the verge of collapse, plant operators risked their lives to fight the flames with cooling fans, carbon dioxide and water. The fire finally died out on October 12, but by that time a radioactive cloud was already spreading across the United Kingdom and Europe. In the United Kingdom, a fire broke out in the Windscale nuclear reactor, now known as Sellafield. The fire released a significant amount of radioactive contamination into the atmosphere but did not lead to a full-scale nuclear meltdown. It's considered one of the worst nuclear accidents in British history. While no evacuations occurred, officials prohibited the sale of milk from the affected area for roughly a month. Scientists estimate that, over the long term, radioactive fallout from the Windscale fire may have caused some 240 cases of cancer. 3. 3 Mile Island, March 28, 1979. The most infamous nuclear accident in U.S. history took place at the 3 Mile Island plant near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a brand new facility lauded for its state-of-the-art design, efficiency and affordability during an era of energy crises. It began when a pressure valve in one of the reactors failed to close, allowing cooling water, contaminated with radiation, to drain into adjoining buildings. Control room operators made critical errors as they struggled to contain the crisis, and by early morning the core had heated to over 4,000 degrees, just 1,000 degrees short of meltdown. As radioactive steam began pouring out of the plant, word of the incident leaked to the outside world. Within days, radiation levels were elevated over a 4-county zone. Pennsylvania Governor Richard Thornburg ordered the evacuation of pregnant women and small children from the area. Located in Pennsylvania, USA, the 3 Mile Island accident resulted from a cooling malfunction in one of the reactors. While a partial meltdown occurred, the containment structure prevented the release of large amounts of radioactive materials into the environment. It was a significant wake-up call for nuclear safety in the United States. On March 31st, plant workers were able to address the problems and ended the threat of a meltdown. Although no official deaths or injuries were reported, there has been an ongoing controversy over whether the radiation released at 3 Mile Island led to increased cancer and infant mortality rates in the region. The incident also eroded the American public's faith in nuclear power. 4. Church Rock, July 16, 1979. Thousands of tons of radioactive waste from the largest underground uranium mine in the United States spilled from a failed dam into the North Fork of New Mexico's Puerco River in a disaster that likely released more radiation but received far less media coverage than the 3 Mile Island incident 4 months earlier. The Church Rock uranium mill spill occurred on July 16, 1979, in Church Rock, New Mexico, USA. It is one of the lesser-known but significant environmental disasters associated with uranium mining and processing. The incident took place at the United Nuclear Corporation (UNC) Church Rock uranium mill, which was located on the Navajo Nation reservation. The disaster was triggered by the failure of a tailings dam at the UNC Church Rock uranium mill. A tailings dam is used to contain the radioactive waste produced during uranium milling. Heavy rainfall caused by monsoon storms overloaded the dam, leading to its breach. The breached tailings dam released approximately 1,100 tons of radioactive mill waste and 94 million gallons of contaminated water into the Puerco River, a tributary of the Little Colorado River. This resulted in a significant release of radioactive materials into the environment. The spill had severe environmental consequences. It contaminated the Puerco River and the surrounding land with radioactive waste, affecting local ecosystems and posing long-term environmental hazards. The spill also had detrimental effects on agriculture and livestock in the area. The spill raised concerns about the health of local residents, many of whom were Navajo people. The radioactive contamination of water sources posed health risks, and there were long-term concerns about radiation-related illnesses in the affected communities. The spill, from the United Nuclear Corporation's Church Rock mill, contaminated land and water used by members of the Navajo Nation, backing up sewers, affecting 2 aquifers, and sending contaminants as far as 80 miles downstream. Nevertheless, state and national officials downplayed the incident, which had primarily affected a rural, sparsely populated, majority American Indian area. When the Navajo Tribal Council sent a telegram to the governor of New Mexico asking him to declare a state of emergency, their request was denied. 5. Chernobyl, April 26, 1986. Built in the late 1970s about 65 miles north of Kyiv in Ukraine, the Chernobyl plant was one of the largest and oldest nuclear power plants in the world. In April of 1986, a bungled experiment at one of the facility's 4 reactors created a sudden power surge, which in turn led to a series of blasts that blew the 1,000-ton steel top off of the reactor. A lethal cloud of radioactive material gathered over the nearby town of Pripyat, which was not evacuated until 36 hours after the explosion, before wafting over large parts of Europe. This is perhaps the most infamous nuclear disaster in history. It occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. A combination of design flaws, operator errors, and a lack of safety measures led to a massive explosion and fire in reactor number 4. The explosion released a substantial amount of radioactive material into the atmosphere, leading to immediate deaths and long-term health problems for thousands of people. The Chernobyl exclusion zone remains largely uninhabitable to this day. In the opening days of the crisis, 32 people died at Chernobyl and dozens more suffered radiation burns. The radiation that escaped into the atmosphere, equivalent to several times that produced by the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, contaminated millions of acres of forest and farmland. The full human toll from the calamity is still unknown, but experts believe that thousands of people died and as many as 70,000 suffered severe poisoning. In 2000, the last working reactors at Chernobyl were shut down and the plant was officially closed. 6. Fukushima, March 11, 2011. On March 11, 2011, a massive undersea earthquake, the largest ever recorded in Japan, occurred off the northeast coast of the country's Tohoku region. The 9.1 magnitude quake triggered a tsunami that struck the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. During the emergency, each of the 3 operational nuclear reactors at the plant shut down successfully, but the backup power and cooling systems failed. As a result, residual heat caused fuel rods in all 3 reactors to partially melt down. The facilities where reactors 1 and 3 were located exploded on March 12 and 14, prompting the government to evacuate everyone within a 20 kilometers radius. Another explosion in the building housing Reactor 2 on March 15 released even more radiation. A powerful earthquake and tsunami off the coast of Japan triggered a series of events at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The natural disaster caused a loss of power and cooling capabilities, leading to meltdowns in 3 of the plant's reactors. This released radioactive materials into the environment and forced the evacuation of surrounding areas. It's considered the most severe nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. The full extent of the fallout became apparent over the ensuing months, with the government eventually evacuating all residents within a 30 kilometers radius of the plant. No deaths were initially attributed to the incident, although 18,000 people lost their lives as a result of the earthquake and tsunami. These nuclear disasters serve as reminders of the potential consequences of mishandling nuclear technology, whether through design flaws, human errors, or natural disasters. They have had far-reaching environmental, health, and societal impacts and have contributed to the development of stricter safety regulations in the nuclear industry. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.